Hello viewers, good day to you all. Let's discuss much more about the viruses. Viruses. In one of the earlier class, we discussed the discovery, occurrence and distribution, then various the properties of the viruses. Viruses are such a smallest and very simple the microscopic living organisms that we studied earlier. These are submicroscopic or ultramicroscopic entities. They infect and then certainly cause a diseases in various animals, plants, and then other the microscopic organisms. These are submicroscopic entities and are potentially pathogenic. Definitely they cause a diseases in various organisms. It's very interesting that virus particles are present everywhere. They are omnipresent. So viruses, they cause a very deadly diseases in various animals, including the human beings, and are even responsible for uh, the tumors or the cancers in various animals, including the human beings. Virus also, they cause destructive diseases in our croplands. So, viruses, as such, these um, intracellular obligate parasites are concerned. They usually are called by the name as a intracellular obligate parasites. They infect and then cause a disease. So usually they remain alive when they are present inside the living host cell. So therefore, the virologist rightly said that viruses are intracellular obligate the parasites. As such, the size and the shape and the morphology morphology of various the virus particles are concerned. We also studied earlier that some virus particles only they infect to the plants and cause a disease. Means what? They replicate inside the plant cells and tissues and organs only. Such a virus particles are termed as a plant viruses. Then there are even some viruses. They infect particularly only to the animals, maybe the birds or any other animals or animals. Okay, various animals, including the human beings. Such a virus particles are termed as animal viruses. Some virus particles are they very specifically infect to the bacteria. Such a viruses are termed as a bacterial viruses or the bacteriophages or simply the phages. It may be the animal viruses or a plant viruses or a bacterial viruses, or sometimes at another the group may be mentioned here, some virus particles infect only to the fungi. Such a viruses are termed as a mycoviruses. So they are highly specific. They infect to a particular plants, particular animals, particular organisms. So as such, the sizes of various the viruses are concerned. Usually they range from 20 to 40 nanometer. Take for example, foot and mouth disease causing a virus particle. Usually its size is of about 10 nanometer. 10 nanometer. TMV virus, which is a first virus studied in a detailed way for the first time after the discovery of the various viruses, their existence. So the tobacco mosaic virus usually it is a 250 nanometer long. Uh, so these are very smallest and simplest microscopic organisms, much smaller than that of the bacteria. Then, as such, the shape and morphology of the various viruses are concerned. Morphologically, there are four distinct the groups of viruses are identified: helical viruses, polyhedral viruses, enveloped viruses, and complex viruses. Helical viruses, polyhedral viruses, polyhedral viruses, enveloped viruses, and complex viruses. Complex viruses. These are the four distinct, the different morphological forms of various viruses. Helical viruses are those usually they appear in a rod-shaped form. Example: TMV, tobacco mosaic virus. Tobacco mosaic virus is a rod-shaped virus. It exhibits a helical symmetry. Okay, so earlier we studied that that is the arrangement of the capsomers in the capsid of the various virus particles determine their shape. So the capsid gives a definite shape to the virus particles. This capsid also helps the recognition of specific sites over the surface or a cell membrane of a host cell. It may be the plant animal or the bacterium. So tobacco mosaic virus is a good example for the helical or a rod shaped the virus particle. Then polyhedral polyhedral viruses are at another morphological forms of the viruses. Uh, Polyhedral, they exhibit a polyhedral shape. Uh, Polyhedral shape. Example may be the poliovirus, and adenovirus. So these two are the animal viruses. The poliovirus, which infect the human beings and cause a disease known as poliomyelitis. Very specifically, it infect the poliovirus infect to the nervous system or the neurons or the nerve cells of the body of the human beings. So it exhibit a polyhedral the morphological shape itself. Then there are certain virus particles, even they exhibit the uh, envelope outer to the capsid. So we know that every virus particle contain a genetic material which is covered and protected by the capsid. So in enveloped the virus particles, we observe the presence of yet another envelope, capsid, so the genetic material. So such a virus particles are termed as a enveloped virus particles. So sometimes this outermost the envelope may or may not contain some spikes. Example here, that is the HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. These spikes also made up of the proteins the lipids, and then even associated with the carbohydrates. This envelope chemically also composed of the proteins and as well as the lipids, even some carbohydrates. So such an extra envelope, if it is present in a virus particles, the viruses are termed as the enveloped viruses. Then at another, the morphological form of the viruses have been observed, um, such as all those viruses are termed as the complex viruses. Complex viruses means what? These are morphologically very distinct and too complex. They are neither helical in form, polyhedral in form, or enveloped in form. So the morphology, it is very complex. Majority of the bacteriophages, the viruses which infect to the bacteria, are termed as the bacteriophages. Majority, almost all the bacteriophages, usually they appear in a complex form. Complex form. So complex morphological form of the virus is at another group of the viruses. So these are the four different morphological the form of the viruses. Viruses have been uh, classified earlier. They were classified earlier based on the fact that how they infect means what? Based on their mode of infection into a animal virus, the plant virus, and a bacterial viruses. Bacterial viruses. Bacterial viruses. Bacterial viruses. Bacterial viruses, shortly termed as the bacteriophages. 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 Shortly, phases. Shortly, phases. Phases. We studied earlier that the virus particles, even they infect to the bacteria, inside of which they multiply. They release out with the destruction of the bacterial cell wall. Although such a bacteria are the virus particles are termed as the bacterial viruses or bacteriophages. So these bacteriophages in their life cycle shows two different types of the life cycle, the mechanism of the life cycle: lytic cycle and a lysogenic cycle. So before to discuss about the lytic cycle and a lysogenic cycle of the bacteriophage, it is better to understand the different types of the bacteriophages. Bacteriophages usually appear in three distinct different morphological the forms. So it is uh, required here uh, in order to understand the various aspect of the bacteriophages or the lytic cycle or a lysogenic cycle of a bacteriophage. Majority of the bacteriophages usually they appear in a tadpole shape. Tadpole shape. Tadpole shape means what? They exhibit a head and tail. There are bacteriophages. Uh, they appears as in icosahedral symmetry. That is a tail-less symmetry. Bacteriophages. Bacteriophages. Different morphological forms. Different morphological forms. Morphological forms. Different morphological forms. The first group of the bacteriophages is that it is icosahedral or a tailless bacteriophase. Icosahedral, icosahedral symmetry, icosahedral, also called tailless, tailless bacteriophages, tailless bacteriophages, tailless bacteriophages. This is the first group of the bacteriophages. Example may be given here. There are many viruses. They infect to a particular bacteria. Take for example MS2. It's the name of the virus, the bacteriophage, which infect to the Escherichia coli bacterium. Is a good example for the icosahedral or a tailless the bacteriophage. MS2, MS2, which infect to the Escherichia coli the bacterium. This virus particle exhibit a icosahedral symmetry of the arrangement of the capsomers and nothing but the shape of the bacteriophage. It is icosahedral. Not only this is the example for the icosahedral or a tailless bacteriophage. There are many. There are many. Take for example PM2, which infect to the Pseudomonas bacterium. Pseudomonas, Pseudomonas aureus bacterium is also at another the good example for the icosahedral the bacteriophage. This is the first group, the first morphological group of the bacterium. Among the bacteriophages, yet another group of morphological group have also been recognized. It is of filamentous or a helical shaped bacteriophages. Filamentous or a helical shaped group, helical shaped the bacteriophages. Filamentous or a helical, very long filamentous or a helical shaped bacteriophages are also available, are also found to occur in the nature. They infect to the bacteria, but their shape it is helical or a filamentous. Example, a good example may be given here. M13, the bacteriophage. This bacterium, this virus particle also infect to the Escherichia coli bacterium. Escherichia coli bacterium, and inside of which it usually replicate. So the reproduction or the multiplication of the virus particles commonly termed as a replication process. So as these virus particles contain only the nucleocapsid, replicate itself inside the host cell. So therefore we must call it as a replication. Various virologists describe the multiplication of the virus under the name the replication. We shall again study about the replication of the viruses, keeping in our mind a particular plant virus or a animal virus or a bacteriophages. At another the morphological form of the bacteriophage is that some bacteriophages even they exhibit uh, head and as well as the tail. All those such a the bacteriophages are assigned under the third group, that is head and head and tail shaped head and tail shaped bacteriophages. Bacteriophages. Head and tail shaped bacteriophages are most extensively studied. After the description, after the detailed the study of the TMV, it is uh, the head and tail shaped, the T4 bacteriophage studied in a detailed way. So, head and tail shaped bacteriophages are usually uh,